And that's how it goes. You never ever know about the NWO. Deep behind enemy lines for September 15th, 2020. More Earth changes and geopolitical upheaval, and another update to the New World Order. The sun has started a new solar cycle. Yeah. Expect the sunspots to be the least amount they've ever had in over 100 years. Scientists say NASA expects solar cycle 25 to be the weakest it's been in a long time. From the No Link News Desk, move over, harp-tards. You'll not see this news or earthquake prediction from Doomsday Dumbass Disinfo Dutchy Magic 3D Earthquake Crystal Ball first. So in case you want to miss this and wait around for sloppy seconds from Doomsday Disinfo Dumbass Dutchy, let's get to the science of things today. Back in 1998, Mitch Batros was on the radio show Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. And that year, Mitch Batros shocked the Global Warming Agenda 21 community with his space weather equation. And his space weather equation went something like this. Sunspots trigger solar flares. Solar flares trigger the Earth's magnetic field to shift. A shifting Earth magnetic field triggers shifting jet stream currents and shifting ocean currents. Shifting ocean currents and shifting jet stream currents trigger extreme weather and human disruption. So let's bring you up to speed today. That NASA scientists explained that the solar maximum predicted for 2025 is expected to be the weakest they've seen in 100 years. So what's up in the sky there, everyone? According to many of the news sources now, getting up to speed, as you will soon see in the next few days. Let me bring you Forbes' article and NASA, but I'll read through this to let you see what I mean, because they obviously are telling us, that space weather is going to be pretty mild, Dutchy Doomsday Dumbass Dutchy, according to NASA. So, with a mild conditions, we're going to see the Earth cooling because the sun is not going to be as active, with not as many sunspots in the very near future. Let me see. Boom. Oops. Hold on here. Here's what I want to bring you all up, what I've been following the last couple days. Okay. Oh, yeah, I got to go over here. We don't want to talk about here, Louis. We want to talk about sunspot predictions. NASA's got this now thing going on. and it's called space weather, and that's what Miss Petros in 1998's equation was all about. And then he upgraded that equation in 2012 to include the charged particles that from the now, instead of the sun and the cosmic rays and charged particles from the sun, he now included in 2012 the cosmic rays from the Milky Way, from other stars, and other electromagnetic radioactive energy. We call, described as the Mayan fifth element. Okay, well, I'm going to get me crazy, too. I'm not bringing you in here to let you see what the heck. Wait a minute. That's not. Yeah, here we go. Now we can show you. Yeah. Oh, no, I can't. Hold on a second. Just a second. It's not. We're going to go to the sunspot predictions here. All right. So, we got here are the dates. In September, we average a month of 5 sunspots predicted, with a high of 12 maybe possible. And sunspot low 0. So we've had approximately 0 sunspot over the last month. But tracking this space weather data, over at spaceweather.com. We're going to see, and I know many others are also studying this same phenomenon, but as we get in here, to the end of the year, December, we're gradually going to see a increase in sunspots, and clear into 2021. So here in December, we got an average here now this month of 5. When we get to December, we're looking at 7. So we're looking at 5.5, 6.5 to 7 by December. So we go up here, we go in here to April, we got 9. We go up here to May, we got 12 in 2021, so on and so forth. So by the end of 2021, and from sunspots of 7, we're going to see an average of 27 sunspots a month. That's what NASA here at the Space Weather Observatory is predicting. Doomsday dumbass disinfo Dutchie. And these values were also based upon 2012 as the peak of the solar cycle occurred. Now we're going to see and get up here, like I said, 2025. We're getting up here, 2023. Well, let's take a guess what the peaks of these sunspots are going to be. Because, back in 2012, and 2011, dumbass Doomsday Dutchie, when we had them sunspots peaking going on, I was pointing this out way back in 2002, 2001. But who am I to, get you up to speed? Because Mitch Petros was all into his newsletters informing us all about this too. I was also, not only following his newsletter, this is the topic of interest. It's way ahead of Doomsday Disinfo Dumbass Dutchie. But he likes, he likes to take off. He'll start talking about solar activity, how it's connected to the earthquakes. But yeah, we got a lot more to, investigate and showing that how it is involved, and pretty much debunk all those global warming alarmists out there and claiming that human activity is responsible for heating up the Earth's planet and triggering all this climate change bullshit. So we're looking at 2025 to be the peak, is where we're seeing the sunspot activity. And when we get up here to 2026, then it starts to go back down again. But I'm looking at 113, 114, 113, 112. So throughout 2024 to 2000, we're going to see 100 sunspots a month, it's predicted. 100, maybe 100 100 sunspots a month, 114, with a high, maybe 124, 125 sunspots a month, dumbass doomsday Dutchie. So these are our predictions. We're just forecasting this just based on the values. But what we're seeing, NASA saying, is that it's not going to be as many sunspots as there was in the previous solar cycle 24. But now, something's very interesting. We get up here and they go down, boom, boom, down, 2028. Now, we're looking at, 5 sunspots on the average for this month, and there's barely been even one. There's kind of one. We'll get space weather to show you that, but we go down here to 2033, two sunspots, 2001 sunspot. Then it just dropped down. There's nothing. We go down here about where we start seeing there's no sunspots at all. Now, an 11-year solar cycle, so we should see on this list, okay, if 2025 is a peak, 2011, 2012, and it's 2000, so we're looking about, 2033, it's supposed to peak again, and there is nothing going back up on the board, on what we're calling solar cycle number 26. All right? Now, that's the interesting part. No sunspots at all going into solar cycle 26 and clear up into the solar cycle 27. We're at the year 2040. We don't even have any sunspots at all, with a maximum number of 9. 0 to 9, all this on through. So we got 0 to 10 up through 2000. Okay, one sunspot. Okay, here we go. One sunspot, predicted, with a high of 11 in 2034. All right, that is a pretty interesting looking, chart. So if we don't have no sunspots, we're going to be going into a major solar minimum for the next two solar cycles. But maybe this is just, an error glitch in the matrix, you know what I'm saying? But all in all, these record sunspots being predicted is not as many as we've seen back in solar cycle 24, is the point I want to make here for you all. We're going in here to solar cycle 25. NASA and NOAA scientist explains what this means. In today's news, September 15th, 2020. Today's news, Dutchie, we're breaking news here at No Link News once again. You're all going to have to get up to speed because you're a little slow when it comes up the upswing in space weather and impacting our lives and technology on Earth, as well as astronauts in space. Solar Cycle 25 Prediction Panel, an international group of experts co-sponsored by NASA and NOAA, announced that the solar minimum occurred in December of 2019, marking the start of a new solar cycle. Because our sun is so variable, it can take months after the fact to declare this event. Scientists use these sunspots to track solar cycle progress. Dark blotches on the sun are associated with solar activity, often are origins of giant explosions such as solar flares or coronal mass ejections, which spew light, energy, and solar material into space. Nah, that energy. Never know about the dark matter. As a solar minimum and approach cycle 25's maximum, and it's important to remember, solar activity never stops, Doomsday Dutchie, just like earthquakes, unrest never ends. Boom, there you go, earthquake forecasting dumbass disinfo Dutchie guy. The pendulum never quits swinging, never quits having earthquakes, because the geodynamo affected all those tectonic plates, and fault lines all working together as the Earth does its change part as the climate change prediction. So here we go. NASA, NOAA, along with FEMA and other federal agencies and departments are working together on a national space weather strategy plan and action plan to enhance space weather preparedness to protect the nation from space weather hazards. Well, yeah. We've got both sides to look at this and see that the new cycle is predicted to show that it's not going to have as many sunspots. With this solar minimum, scientists expect the sun's activity to ramp up toward the next predicted maximum of July. There we go. July 2025. So there we go. That's the month. That was back, kind of like what it was in 2012. Is the same last solar cycle, which, by, no coincidence of my own to point out, yeah. Remember those extreme weather conditions and extreme weather events, Dutchy, dumbass? But hey, space weather is real, and those major earthquakes back in 2002, remember Chile, and the 9.0 in Japan in 2011, huh? Well, go back and look at all my information I gathered. You'll know, and I know, that the Mayans predicted that solar cycle to be the strongest we'd seen in our lifetime. So what's going on with our sun? What is a solar cycle? Our star has cycles that last 9 to 14 years. As this headline and article, what is a solar minimum? And this is the interesting part. Forbes is pointing out it produces fewest electrons and protons, making solar flares relatively rare, which we have had over the last couple years. This solar minimum between solar cycle 24 and solar cycle 25 happens to be what many have predicted. We go now to spaceweather.com because we'll be back to this right now about the solar maximum. When the sun produces more electrons and more protons and charged particles, which triggers the Earth to heat up and the core to heat up and the Earth expand and trigger more earthquakes. And when it cools in its cooling cycle, then it shrinks and triggers earthquakes as it shrinks. So we now know what I've explained about this, but how active will solar cycle 25 be? Well, solar cycle 25, as you see, is not going to be quite as a peak as solar cycle 24. But in solar cycle 23, yeah, we had some big earthquakes. Remember that there, Dutchy dumbass? Those space weather events. I got still footage of the earthquake lights. Yeah, the strange sky lights in the sky during the Chile earthquake. I still have that footage. You know that, don't you, dumbass Doomsday Dutchy? So here we go. Right here on the right in your face, a Maunder Minimum refers to the period between 1645 and 1715 when sunspots were very rare and there may have been a little ice age. After 4 solar cycles with declining number of sunspots, this is what many scientists fear, and these panels that don't want you to know that, we want to, blame you for global warming. We want to charge you for carbon credits and global taxes because obviously the United Nations Agenda 21 now includes ramping up this amplitude of claiming the Earth's all going to fry and we're all going to die from the oceans melting and the ice caps. I mean, not the oceans melting. The ice caps melting and the oceans rising and the coastline shrinking. So this is all part of seeing why now the sun is actually weakening, and we're going to see and predict that the solar cycle 25 will bring about a mini ice age type event. That's what many are indicating. But hey, we're getting too mixed signals from all these doomsday, dumbass, disinfo, dunchy guys, aren't we? As the sun wakes up, solar activity will increase, and I showed you over the next few months that the sunspots are going to slowly increase. So keep your eye out, keep your forecast ahead, because that's what space weather is. Violent eruptions from the sun. This solar energy and these solar flares are known to know, like I said, Mitch Petro's equation, extreme weather and human disruption. So, we just into the mix, throw it all down into the idea of, hey, solar cycle 25 has begun, and how quickly solar cycle 25 rises will be seen over the next few months. We'll know that the sun, if it begins more activity, seems to have been pretty blank over the last month. But I did point out we did have some geomagnetic activity, Dutchie. Triggered a nice big earthquake on that day when we had geomagnetic storms down in Chile again. Well, I'm not predicting earthquakes. I'm only predicting violent eruptions from the sun, which can trigger magnetic shifts in our magnetic field, and know that the weakening magnetic field and those electric charged particles were seen as a reconnection with these electrons with the Earth's crust or Earth's surface, triggering an earthquake and earthquake lights. That's what we do now know that scientists have documented. So, I don't know. You never know. For No Link News, bringing you all up to speed with all the sunspot activity. Did you see the green clouds over Sweden? Yeah. The unexpected blast of charged particles was seen as intense auroras were amazing phenomenon as a crack in the Earth's magnetic field. Once again, the solar wind poured in to fuel this display, as in the news yesterday. Such cracks often during weeks around equinoxes and the phenomenon known as the Russell-McLaren effect. With autumnal equinox 1 week away, more green clouds in the offing. So we have a sunspot so much that it may be growing and getting larger, but once again, it's not official. It's not an official sunspot yet. You can't even see it up here in the top right-hand corner of the sun. No, you can't see it yet. But here we go. We're going to give you bring you up to speed with this little narrative on sunspots and space weather activity, dumbass doomsday Dutchie. Here we go. Ready? A, B, C, D.
There's a rhythm emanating from the sun to the edges of the solar system. Roughly every 11 years, our star ramps up to a turbulent state, expelling violent eruptions. After a peak, it calms down to a quieter phase before starting all over again. This is known as the solar cycle. This ebb and flow of solar activity affects the entire solar system, including spacecraft electronics and astronauts that can be affected by particle radiation if they're not sufficiently protected. Understanding the solar cycle is one of the oldest problems in solar physics, and now predicting it is more critical than ever as we venture to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. So here are ways we've learned about tracking it.
So welcome to the dome. Today we're gonna observe the sun and see if it has some sunspots.
Every morning when the skies are clear, Olivier looks through this telescope in search of sunspots. These are dark blotches on the sun that are the main source of solar eruptions. They appear and disappear on the sun's surface.
So we're not looking at the sun, in fact we're looking at the shadow of the instrument. Then we put the paper always at the same place, and then we can start drawing.
Olivier and a team of sun observers record the pattern of sunspots by pencil. The first known record of sunspots date back to around 1,000 years ago in China. After the invention of the telescope in the 17th century, routine observations were made. Today, sunspot drawers still use the same technique. While we've created satellites that can see the sun in much more detail in recent decades, drawing by hand keeps the centuries-long record consistent. The sunspot number record goes back farther than any other instrument, allowing scientists to analyze the sun's behavior over many, many solar cycles. Sunspot numbers are collected from observatories around the world and are averaged. During every 11-year cycle, the number of sunspots rise from zero to a peak and then go back down to zero again. Scientists use these numbers to determine when a new solar cycle begins and how active a cycle is. Solar maximum, the period of highest activity, can vary wildly from cycle to cycle. The more sunspots there are, the higher the frequency of solar storms of all types. Some that create aurora, and some that can affect power grids on Earth. But sunspot number isn't the only indicator we see. These numbers are often combined with other signs. At the beginning of each cycle, sunspots appear on the sun in the mid-latitudes for a brief few hours to days. At solar minimum, there are often days without any spots at all. As the sun becomes more active, sunspots form closer to the equator and can stick around for weeks to months. These sunspot patterns give clues to what drives the solar cycle, the twisting of the sun's magnetic field. Like Earth, the sun has a magnetic field with a north and south pole. But unlike Earth, the sun's magnetic field becomes extremely complex. This is because the sun is made of plasma, a charged gas that generates electric currents. As the sun rotates, plasma around the equator moves faster than near the poles, causing the magnetic fields to become stretched, elongated, and then twisted. Then kinks in the magnetic fields burst through the surface as sunspots larger than the size of Earth. As the solar cycle unfolds, more sunspots appear and the magnetic field becomes more tangled. At the peak of the solar cycle, the sun's magnetic field flips. The North Pole switches to the south and vice versa. The cycle then ramps down, ready to start a new cycle. Scientists can eventually see the result of this flip inside sunspots using satellites. This black and white image of the sun shows the magnetic field on the surface. Most sunspots appear in pairs. Like a magnet, one side is positive and the other is negative. After they form, they gradually disappear again, leaving behind remnants of magnetic fields that move towards the sun's poles. Eventually, each pole accumulates enough magnetic fields, forcing the sun's poles to flip at the peak of the cycle. Then, new sunspot groups appear with the polarities in the opposite direction. Scientists look for a consistent string of these new sunspots in order to declare the next solar cycle. But the transition between cycles is slow and messy. Cycles often overlap, creating freckles of old and new sunspots on the sun at the same time. Scientists can only determine we're in the new cycle when the number of new sunspots overtake old ones, which can be 6 months to a year after the new cycle has begun. While these spots give us a visible tracker, in recent years, scientists have discovered another signal that's hard to see from Earth. The strength of the sun's poles during solar minimum can help predict how active the next cycle will be. After the poles have reversed at the peak, scientists keep a close eye on it for the next few years. If the magnetic fields accumulated at the poles become strong during this time, it's likely the next solar cycle will be an active one. If the buildup is weak, the next solar cycle won't be as active. While we use these indicators to track the sun, predictions are still hard. After all, we've only had detailed satellite observations of the last 4 solar cycles, and scientists are still learning about what causes the sun's cycle. So until we piece together those missing pieces, the sun, even with its 11-year clock, will continue to surprise us.
Alrighty, there you go. You never know. I am Never Know, Patriot Broadcasting, and Liberty Tree Field Reporter, 8,000, number 8,510. And as always, God bless the Republic. Death to the New World Order. We are on the march. The Empire is on the run. We shall prevail.
In Maya, we need to pray to the sun. We need to pray to the cosmos, because the sun wake up your memory. With the Mayas, in the Popol Vuh, in our sacred book, say, when Tepeo and Gugumats, they were here, they begin to watch how the Creator began to do formation of the earth, of the Mother Earth. So Tepeo and Gugumas, they've been watching. So difficult to understand this because where they were Tepeo and Gugumats? They were in some place in the cosmos. And then, because they watched that, so they know the beginning of everything. What the Popol Vuh, they don't say, the monkeys, they were watching how the Creator had been doing the world. No? They say Tepeo and Gugumas. And Tepeo is the first creator for everything.
Por eso,
That's why
lo que estamos hablando,
what we're talking about,
ustedes y yo,
you and I,
ese es el despertar de
that
la
is the
conciencia.
waking of the consciousness.
Hemos de sentirnos
We must feel
personas importantes
like important people.
antes de pasar por otro lado.
Before going
Les quiero
by
dejar una frase del
to
momento.
something else, I want to leave a phrase with you for this moment, please.
Este es un secreto para cada uno de
This is
ustedes,
a secret for each and every one of you, for your family,
para sus pacientes
for your patients
en su comunidad.
in your community.
Porque muchas preguntas,
Because
ya
a lot
desde
of people
cuando
ask,
me siente la energía
what should I
baja,
do when I feel my energy's
cuando
low?
me siente una energía
When I
negativa,
feel negative energy?
¿qué hago para
What do
renovar?
I do to renew it? To renew myself?
Tomar la energía del Padre Sol,
Take the energy from the Father,
dar
the
el
Son,
movimiento del ojo,
and give it the movement of your eye.
porque el ojo nunca tiene un movimiento propio,
Because the eye never has its very own movement.
para mirar
To look
arriba,
up,
abajo,
down,
los lados,
to the
la
sides,
cabeza.
and to the head.
And Gugumats is second, but one and another is duality. So how we're going to wake up the memory? Only working with the information of the cosmos, not believing in theories like Darwin.